So question number three, the information age, throughout the era, that most important source of competitive advantage is knowledge. Therefore, organizations need to understand the value of knowledge, especially that knowledge resides in the brain as an intangible asset along with other traditional tangible assets. The capacity of organization is linked to the knowledge of its employees. Therefore, improving organizational and employees' capability are important goals for organizations. However, little progress has been made, with many researchers primarily focusing on human capital development rather than relationship capital using human resource management. Most of the knowledge management KPM literature has discussed the antecedents of employees' knowledge sharing. Future research is required to explore how employees' knowledge sharing activities provide benefits to organizations and employees in terms of improved capacity. To address this research gap in the literature, this thesis examines number one, the causative relationships between specific HRM practices and employees' knowledge sharing. Second, the outcomes of knowledge sharing in terms of individuals' capability in workplaces. Based on the previous research, a conceptual model is developed for the study, and the hypotheses are formulated. A total of 800 questionnaires were distributed in 28 organizations. Out of these, 753 were usable questionnaires, resulting in a 94% response rate. A final model is designed, and this thesis use confirmatory factor analysis to examine a causative relationship among the latent constructs of the final model. This thesis finds that the collaborative HRM practices have direct positive effect on employees' knowledge sharing behavior. Surprisingly, this thesis finds that employees' knowledge sharing behavior is independent of monetary rewards. The results suggest that collaborative practices and trust can help employees' knowledge sharing behavior to improve capacity of individuals in their organizations. These empirical results are entirely based on employees' perceptions rather than from the top management perspectives. So it makes a valuable contribution given the lack of empirical studies focusing on the Southern African region. The findings of the thesis are beneficial for researchers, practitioners, and those interested in the culture of knowledge context. From the above, we are required to answer the following questions. To formulate the research objectives, the specific research objectives, to suggest the possible sampling techniques and justify the suggestion, and also to discuss the data analysis procedures employed in the study and generate a robust empirical findings and why, and to state the findings and conclusion of the study. So this was an interesting piece of study where we are told out of the read-up to create specific research objectives. Okay. So there are cases where you're given an abstract like that one. And from the context, you need to identify a key theme that is being talked about here. As you heard me clearly reading, mainly talking about the effect that collaborative human resource practices have on employees' knowledge sharing and how this contributes to individual capacity. So you can identify the main objective from this particular readup. Okay, so let's go down there. So we can see here from the readup, how do we identify the research objectives? Okay, how do we identify the specific research objectives? Can you see a line that can clearly identify?
I think the second
Okay,
paragraph.
so from here, you can see that the literature seeks to examine the causative relationship between the specific human resource practices and employees' knowledge sharing, and also the outcomes. So from just this, you can be able to come up with some of the research objectives. Okay, and also we can see that we're also talking about employees' what capabilities. So the topic that we can suggest for this read up and for the reasons that I'll give will be as follows. Number one, we can come up with the main research objective and the specific research objective. That's about 8 marks. So the main research objective could be to examine, and the main research objective is actually the title of the research. So here we want to examine what? The effect of collaborative human resource management practices on employees' knowledge sharing and how it contributes to improving individual capability. So the specific objectives should be 3 to 5. You can come up with any. So the two were given. Investigate the relationship between collaborative human resource practices and employees' knowledge sharing behavior. Then we also had to assess the extent to which knowledge sharing behavior influences um, employee uh, capability, and also to evaluate whether monetary rewards influence knowledge sharing behavior among employees. Now, just from the objectives, um, can we identify the key variables? Okay, although this wasn't asked, I just want you to learn how to come up with the conceptual framework. Which variables can you tell? So from these, what variables are able to see? Okay, so the independent variables here, we can see we have what? The collaborative human resource practices. We also have monetary rewards. These ones can qualify to be our independent variables. Okay, so independent variables are the variables that will influence, what are we talking about? Knowledge sharing. So in this case, our study wants to measure the impact that it has on the individual capacity. So we are measuring the improvement of employee skills, which can come in terms of problem solving or adaptability. So our independent variables are collaborative practices and monetary ones. And we can say our dependent variable is a individual capacity, okay, which comes in terms of investigate the relationship between collaborative human resource management and employees' knowledge sharing behavior, the extent to which sharing behavior influences individual um, knowledge capacity, evaluate whether monetary rewards knowledge sharing behavior, evaluate whether knowledge um, to evaluate whether monetary rewards influence knowledge sharing behavior among employees. So although that wasn't asked, like I said, you need to identify how to look at the causal factors, all right? So in this case, we can see that the independent variables, we have two, the variables that are expected to influence knowledge sharing and employee capabilities. So we have collaborative human resource practices and mental rewards, the mediating variables. Okay, the mediator that we have between human resource practices and employee capability, it's the knowledge sharing behavior. So our knowledge sharing behavior can be our mediating variable. So this is our independent variable, dependent variable. Okay, this will be our dependent variable. This is our mediating variable. If you're going to draw this, you can have two independent variables, mediating variables, the dependent variables. Okay. So our independent variable is what? Collaborative human resource management. And we also have the monetary reward. And we also have the dependent variable, which is our individual capabilities. And we also have moderating variable, which is employee knowledge. Okay. So this is how we can do our conceptual framework. It looks something like that. So the appropriate research design that we can use there, we can use a causal. Whenever I look at relationship there, we use explanatory. Explanatory is used to measure cause and effect. So a design that you're able to tell from the objectives, whenever you're seeing this relationship, then just know that the design that is appropriate there is what? A causal. We're going to what type of causal relationship we can do a regression. You can also do a descriptive research design because you want to explain or describe the HRM practices and the knowledge sharing practices. So here you're able to tell what the design is, okay? So this is what? Correlation, okay? And here, extent to which knowledge influences. So set whether monetary words. Okay, so you're looking at describing the characteristics. So a descriptive would be appropriate in this case because we want to describe the state of the human resource practices and also the knowledge sharing in the organization. So can somebody help? What do you think the research approach can be here? What research approach are we going to use? It will be quantitative. Why is it quantitative? Because you want to measure the relationship using regression. So quantitative goes along with using structured questionnaires. We're going to use a deductive approach. Okay, the deductive approach is used in quantitative research. Whereas what we use in the qualitative research, who remembers? Am I audible?
Yes, you do.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. So we can use those approaches. Then what else would you want to know from there? I want you to also tell me what is a possible technique, what's a possible sampling technique that we can use in there from the the facts that we have gathered. What do you think would be the possible sampling technique? So from the readout, we can suggest what? The stratified followed by a simple random sampling. Stratified followed by a simple random sampling. So why would we use a stratified followed by a simple random sampling? So if you see from the case study here, we're told that a total of 800 questionnaires were distributed. Okay, this already gives that this is a quantitative research. Okay, of these, 375 were usable, resulting in 95%. So here we targeted employees across 28 different organizations. So to ensure representation from these 28 different organizations, okay, you need representation across all these organizations. So how do we ensure representation is done from different organizations? You use what? Stratified sampling. Okay, so that depending on the size, you will um, you, you use those organizations as stratum. Then you use a simple random sampling that each employee in that particular institution has an equal chance of being selected so that you negate biasness. So this technique is actually appropriate for large uh, companies. So 800 questionnaires were distributed. How many were valid? 753. Now from the 753, you must understand that in a real or actual research, it is um, normal that you do not always falsify or obtain 100% response rate. Okay. So what data um, analysis procedure do you think would be appropriate? We will use descriptive statistics that will give us the demographic profile of the respondents, okay, the mean, standard deviation. So we want to get a snapshot of this data, okay? Then we can also use what is called factor analysis, complementary factor analysis, that can be used to test validity and reliability of the measurement model. So the justification here is that when we use validity, to confirm whether what we hypothesized in the model it fits well, all right? So are we together? Are we following? All right, so let's now go through the question. After what we've read, question part A, formulate the three specific objectives. What are the three objectives that we talked about? What are the three objectives that we talked about? Number one, I said the main objective of the study was to examine the influence of collaborative human resource management practices in employees' knowledge sharing behavior. The specific objectives to investigate the relationship between collaborative human resource and employee knowledge sharing. Then to assess the impact of employees' knowledge sharing on individual capability, which is our dependent variable, and also evaluate um, the monetary rewards. Second question was suggest the possible sampling technique that we can use. Who remembers what is the possible um, sampling technique? Why? What is a possible sampling technique? Say what? We can use a stratified sampling because we have these organizations that are there. Then you can follow a simple random sampling, which would be in each strata. So it would be a stratified random sampling. So at 28 different companies, and you do a simple random sampling. All right. Then discuss the data analysis procedures that can be used in these to generate a robust empirical findings. So what data analysis procedures can be used here? So because there's um, it's quantitative data, we talked about descriptive, we talked about factor analysis, and also what is called the same structure equation model be applicable here. So these are the appropriate. So descriptive analysis will be used to describe the um, demographic profile, okay, of the variables, meaning classification is that it will give you a snapshot of what of data before engaging. Then we also have a complementary factor analysis, which is going to be used. It's actually used whenever we are testing for validity and reliability. Also, the structural equation modeling, which is used to test the causal relationship between the independent and dependent variables and the mediating variables. So it's this model, which is called SAME, it's ideal for testing complex relationships. Okay, then in the reading, what is our what are our findings and conclusions? So the findings actually already in the abstract here. Our findings, we would say that findings show that these collaborative practices had a significant effect on employees' knowledge sharing. Okay, so you need to read here. So finds that collaborative practices have a direct positive effect on sharing behavior. Okay, for point number one. Point number two, we can see that knowledge sharing behavior has contributed to the enrichment of individual capability within the organization. So knowledge sharing behavior, okay, as the behavior here has contributed to improving individuals' what? Capability in the organization. Okay, what other findings are there? So the skill that basically you are learning here is how to summarize to find that. In terms of monetary rewards, do they have an effect on employees' willingness to share? Can somebody tell me on those findings? Monetary rewards, do they have an effect on employees' willingness to share knowledge from these findings? Monetary rewards.
What's the question again?
The monetary rewards, do they have an impact on, do they have an effect on employees' willingness to share knowledge? The monetary rewards from our case here. Because you need to comment that was the third research variable. Look closely, somewhere there. Here. What can you tell from this? So from that statement, we can also conclude that what? Monetary rewards have no effect on what? Employees' willingness to share um, knowledge. Then in terms of the perception that employees have on trust and collaboration, okay, does it play any role in the financial incentives, the employees' perception? So the findings actually reveal that they have a very greater role. So what you're learning is how to summarize data there. So this was carrying how many marks on the conclusion? It's carrying 7 marks. What are the findings and what are the conclusions? So these ones will be gotten from the summary note. So you need to read very well. So what did we find from our findings? So findings and conclusions are different. So we found that what? Number one, we found that collaborative human resource practices have a significant positive effect on what? Knowledge sharing. Number two, knowledge sharing behavior contributed to the what? Enhancement of individual capacity. Number three, monetary rewards have no, we said independent, they're independent if you want. Then number four, we say that the perception of trust and collaboration played a greater role. Then what conclusions we have? That human resource practices are critical for building a culture, knowledge and sharing. Okay. Then employees are more likely to share knowledge in environments where trust and collaboration is. An organization in Southern Africa improve. So these are some of the conclusions that we can get. So this was carrying about 7 marks. The skill here practically is you having to understand which aspects of the research pertain to what. Are we together?
Yes.
Right. So this paper was the previous exam. It was not very friendly. At the same time, it was manageable based on what we have discussed. Okay, so we already did this question last time. Remember this conceptual framework. We also looked at question one. So we finished the previous paper. So we end here for now.